So now, moving on to the further developments. After the 995 Jagirdars have paid 18 crores and they have purchased the lands and they redistributed that, the Hyderabad Agrarian Reforms Committee was appointed to study the facts. How are the tenants? What are the basic problems they are facing? What are the conditions that are required to develop the cultivation on the crops? When the study was made, the reports were very clear and they have some suggestions. The suggestions are these: the removal of any kind of middleman who is existing between the government and the farmer. They want the farmer to interact directly with the government or pay taxes directly to the government. Whatever necessary steps or information has to pass through government to the farmer and not through any middleman. And it also recommended the ceilings on the land. There should be a certain limit on any person's land holdings. There should not be any free flow holding of the lands, so that we can have a certain limit and the extra lands can be again retaken back. And moving on to the surplus lands. The surplus lands has to be taken over by the government and which can be redistributed to the landless poor as per the time brings and requirements. And the tenants have to be protected. See, we have in Telangana the Act of Tenants at Will. Which means that the tenants at will are the people who make clear, like when the landlord is not satisfied with you or wants you to remove from here, he can make you to evacuate at any point of time. You can be evicted at any point, which means like you are staying only till he is satisfied with you. So this kind of tenants should not be there because they can't hold it for a long time. And as the time passed on, in 1950, the Hyderabad Tenancy Act was passed in 1950, which clearly states that the tenants who are staying for more than 6 years will be getting the rights on the land and they will be turned into a protected tenant. The protected tenants are the tenants who have certain rights on the lands, who cannot be evicted very easily. They can continue to do the farming or agriculture for the next generation also, which means they are given some kind of protection from evicted. Now, so finally in 1955, we have one more act which compromised of the some diversities of the existing act. The Hyderabad Inamdars Act was released. Let us find out what are the changes that are recommended in the Hyderabad Inamdar Act. And it has recommended the government to pay more amount to the Zamindars and the Jagirdars than the amount which is paid. So it has started to become a burden on the government of the newly independent nation's government, where they have to pay a large amount to them. Let us see how it influences the common man's life also. So now moving on to the facts of Hyderabad Inam Land Abolition Act, which came into existence in 1955, which was passed from 1950, later on in 1954, which got approval in 1955. As the time passed on, in this law again we have some more new things or new developments which the government has decided. Those are like the tenants' rights are protected only in certain categories, where only in the cultivatable lands. And moving on, landlords are to be paid more compensation. This is an interesting fact to be learned, because the newly independent nation, where the feudal system has been emerging so slowly, and already the government has bought many lands at the cost of paying 15.5 crores, 18 crores, 20 crores in this way. So now again the law made that extra components or extra amount to be paid to the landlords in order to take the large buildings and all these things. If you could not pay it, automatically they will be owned by the landlords. And this also made extra benefit for the landlords. And landlords still maintain a large piece of lands which are under their control by that time, because there is no limit of maintaining the certain amount of land, like you have to maintain only 100 acres of land or 200 acres of land. In this way, there are like many loopholes which were best used by the Zamindars and the Jagirdars, and they turned as perfect businessmen later on and converted their entire lands into business lands. We have one more example for that, is that Mr. Challapalli, the Zamindars of Challapalli, who owned 2650 acres of land under their sugar factory, who later turned as the business magnates in the Andhra region. So this is like the positive utilization or the best utilization of the possible loopholes which are in the bill of this Hyderabad Inam Land Abolition Act or the earlier Hyderabad Tenancy Acts. These all made the zamindars and the landlords to use it as best of their knowledge and turned into perfect dominant people in the society. So this was in the same scene in the Telangana also. They were dominant in the 21st century. The zamindars and the jagirdars were still in dominant picture. Maybe their form has changed. They have turned into businessmen, but they started to influence the society and the government to a larger extent. Let us see what happened with the Land Ceilings Act. Before going into the Land Ceilings Act, let us have a brief recap on the Bhudan movement. How did Telangana have got connectivity to the Bhudan movement? Did it have any influence on this, or Telangana movement has brought influence on the Bhudan movement? Let's check it. Let's have a quick recap of what happened in the Bhudan movement in regarding to the Telangana issue. Let us see here. The Bhudan movement was started by under the movement called Sarvodaya movement by the great leader Acharya Vinoba Bhave. This movement was initially, he wanted to bring a change in the existing farmers' living style because he recognized that most of them are poor people, most of them need lands because they don't know any other studies or they don't have not learn anything which could profitably get some positive impact for them or can do some business or something like that. So they need land which they know only to cultivate it. So he wanted to do his contribution by bringing a remarkable change in their lives. So that too in a peaceful process. He started this great movement on 18th of April 1951, and to his this thing he came to Hyderabad, to the regions nearby to Nalgonda, and he walked there and he stood under a tree of Juvi tree where 40 families have joined there requesting him to donate some piece of land which they need to do cultivation. After listening to the conversations of Vinoba Bhave and these 40 families, Mr. V. Ramachandra Reddy has donated 250 acres of land in the memory of his father, which was really a great contribution. And after receiving the land, Mr. Maisaya was the first person to receive the land after it was donated by Mr. V. Ramachandra Reddy. Vinoba Bhave immediately donated the land to the landless poor people. It was a really great task what he started. Then he went to the landlords and requested them to release certain amount of lands to the landless poor in a peaceful manner. And looking at the turned outcome and great response, he later changed the name of the movement as Gramdan movement, and to our shocking, he could get 44 lakh hectares of the lands all over the nation. See, it's like 44 lakh hectares of land collecting from them. It is not an easy task. It is really a fantastic achievement which was achieved by Acharya Vinoba Bhave. Even though he achieved in a larger scale, but this could not really bring any great significance or changes in the existing poor farmer's life. It was still remained tragedy in the poor farmer's life, yet they could not bring considerable change. The one major reason was that still many of the landlords hold a large amount of piece of lands under their control and large tracts of fields under their control. So yes, it was a real attempt made by Acharya Vinoba Bhave to bring a considerable change. He brought to some extent, but not in the full extent.